Hey guys, Sheri Richerson from Experimental Homesteader Exotic Gardening, SheriAnnRicherson.com and BuyAnnualBlog.com, and welcome to our daily vlog. It's a hot one out today. I haven't looked to see what the heat index is, but I know there are heat warnings. I got up this morning and I let the chickens out, and because they're in a completely shaded area, they get a little filtered sunlight, but not bad. The walnut trees above them are huge, and basically they like to go around the base of the walnut tree because there's still a lot of bugs and weeds and stuff over there that they are getting taken care of for me. So they're fine. I gave them extra water, and I haven't gave them a lot of food today. They had some food left over. I'm going to feed them this evening because in the extreme heat that seems to work better to feed them in the evening after they go in rather than give them a lot of grain in the morning. So I do feed them with the Purina Organics. So like I said, I normally do feed in the morning, but in the extreme heat it's evening. So the main thing is I want them to stay cool and hydrated all day, and I don't have, where they're at, there's no way to run a fan out there. If they was actually in a building, I would have a fan going on them. But since they're just in one of those put together chicken coops, inside of a dog kennel with a covering on top, there's just no way to put a fan out there. So anyway, if you do have your poultry in a regular chicken house, putting a fan right now and periodically giving them some ice cubes in a dish of water is a really good idea. Or if you don't want to cover the ice cubes with water, just the ice cubes, they will love that. And it definitely helps to keep them cool. Another thing that you can do is take like the individual pop bottles, or even the 2-liter bottles if that's all you have, fill them with water and freeze them, and then just lay them out there. And if they get too hot, they will get up against that. It's especially good for rabbits. Now I know if you're raising Angora rabbits, you don't really want their fur wet, but in this heat the best thing to do with those is to shear them down and go ahead and put the frozen water bottles out there so that they can stay cool and they don't overheat, because animals will succumb to this heat very quickly if they get dehydrated, if they get too hot, especially if they are a darker colored animal. The other thing I did today is I went outside and I had a very small harvest. We had some blackberries. This is really a good sized one. Trying to see the best way for you to see it. Really a very good sized one. And there was only one. There are some more ripening, but this was the first one for the year. And then the other thing that I harvested, and I hope I harvested these right because there was almost no information online. What I did find said to harvest them when they were dark green. These are Sriracha peppers. And this is my first year growing them. So there were 2 ready. There's a lot more on the vines. There's a lot of cayenne peppers that I'm just waiting for them to turn red. I noticed that the green beans are starting to try to vine and flower. So I've got to get out there and I've got to get some stakes. And I'm just going to run yarn between the stakes because they grow up that just fine. And yarn is really cheap. It's a really cheap way to get your green beans to go up. And I grow pole beans mostly, but I've had some bush beans mixed in because what I do, whatever I get, green beans, corn, whatever I get, I mix all my seeds together instead of trying to plant and keep them separate. And the reason I do this is because I save my seeds and I like a variety. I find that it helps with the pest problems, especially since my favorite green beans to grow are the purple colored ones. So when I get the greens and the yellows and the splotched ones like the dragon tongue, and they're just all mixed up, the insects seem to have a harder time finding them. And then, like I said, every year I don't try to save pure varieties of seed. I save seed from my best plants that perform the best in my garden, and then I can replant that seed the following year. And by doing this, what I'm doing is I'm creating specialized seed that is acclimated to my soil, my climate, the pest and disease problems that I might have on my property, and they perform a lot better than anything that I can actually buy. So that's a real advantage of seed saving. Of course, you have to stay away from the GMO seeds, which I do. You cannot save seed from any type of GMO variety. So you want to get the open pollinated heirloom varieties if you're going to save the seed. And then, like I said, I just recommend buying the varieties you want and mixing them all together. Unless there's a variety that you really like and you don't want any other variety. But I've just found doing that does so much better. My corn is not doing real good this year. I had really bad termination, so I think I'm going to have to hand pollinate what is coming up if it makes it, because it's really late in the year. But the green beans are doing good. The peppers are doing good. The carrots are doing really good. The reddish are up, but they're not really forming redishes. They've got really huge tops, and I imagine I'm going to get reddish pods, which then can be saved for seed or eaten. Reddish pods are really good. They taste like the reddish. You can put them in salads. You can eat them raw, whatever you do with a regular reddish. The kale, the Swiss chard, the spinach, all those crops are growing very slowly, which is a good thing because we don't want them to bolt. I would rather have them grow really slow and take off when the cool season comes, because then I can put a cold frame over them and harvest during the winter time and have fresh food from my garden during the winter. And I am in Indiana, USDA zone 5-6, and so we do get some pretty cold winters. We get some days below zero, and I've always been able to grow cool weather crops at least through December. Now, things like Brussels sprouts and kale, I let the frost hit those before I cover, if I cover. I can usually harvest those into the end of December without any type of cover at all. And the reason I let them get frosted is because, just like Jerusalem artichokes, they get sweeter after the frost hits them. And that's what you really want. You want to bring that sweetness in the vegetable out, because it makes the vegetable taste so much better. I know the weeds have got ahead of a lot of us this year. If you've still got stuff in your garden growing, but you feel like it's overcome with weeds, you can pull those weeds, or you can just leave them and go in between them and harvest the crops. I have an overabundance of amaranth growing up everywhere this year. It came up on its own because I planted amaranth once, and it has so many tiny seeds that even though I tried to gather all the seeds, they just kind of drop. And I don't mind having that grain crop in my garden because it is a good crop, and I can save the seeds to either plant, or I can grind them down and make some grain, or my favorite way to use them is just to use them as a topping on homemade bread, homemade dinner rolls. I like to mix my grains when I do that. Sometimes I'll use chia seeds, amaranth. I've been known to use hemp hearts because you can buy those here. Sesame seeds, flax seed, whatever kind of seeds you like. You can do it by itself, or you can mix several of those together and then just sprinkle it on the top. I know Jeff doesn't really seem to care for that, but I really like it, especially when I make homemade dinner rolls. I think it makes them pretty, and it gives them that extra crunchy taste. And I really feel like the seeds are good for you. Now, I do not put those on right away. I let all of my dinner rolls and stuff rise. And then I give a brushing of butter, and then I sprinkle the seeds on, and then I bake them. So they are toasted seeds. They are not raw seeds. And then when the bread or dinner rolls or whatever come out of the oven, I use a little bit of melted butter, and I go over the top of the bread or dinner roll, and that helps to keep the top a little bit softer and not as crunchy, because I really don't like it when it's super crunchy. So anyway, guys, I hope y'all are staying cool in this heat, and I hope these tips have helped you. And I want to ask you to please subscribe, help us out. Thumbs up, thumbs down, comments and questions below. And thanks for watching, guys, and have a wonderful weekend.